Now, the reason why I said getting your framework is really important with this is that's actually one of the steps that makes it really quite irresistible for people who are quite influential in your industry to promote you. If you've got that framework in place and a definite transformational promise, it's a really powerful communication tool to bring on strategic partners, just people who will promote you in your industry.
Welcome to the Romance Your Tribe podcast with me, Janet Beckers, where every episode is about action, creating an online business you absolutely love, and bringing joy to the work you do. Let's get this party started.
Hello and welcome, Janet Beckers here, and I'm so excited to be here with another episode of Romance Your Tribe podcast. Now, in this episode, I'm going to dive deep into some big changes that I know are happening at the moment and what the signs are so you can actually recognize it yourself if you haven't already, and importantly, what it boils down to, like the three main things that you really need to buckle down on, baby, in order to be proactive and for your business to really survive through these changes, because a lot of people are not going to. Okay, so that's what we're going to be covering today. But first of all, can I just say how much I love podcasting? It's really nice being back to do this. Now, if you haven't listened to the episode where I talk about what happened when I interviewed 17 random people from my tribe, go and have a listen, because I explain why I stopped my podcast and why I started again. So you can go and get that detail here. But what I wanted to share with you here is why I love it so much. Well, first of all, I love doing interviews. I just really love hearing people's stories and diving in deep. And I'm really excited that a new thing that we're introducing through the podcast is every month, sometimes a bit more actually, I'm actually shining the light on tribe members. So people who are actually taking action. So these are your peers, and, sharing things like, how they got their first, how did they get their first subscriber? How did they get their first sale? How did they manage to grow their business without any mailing list or website? Or what was it that tipped them from being a 5-figure business to a 6-figure business? So all of those sorts of things, I'm really looking forward to that and sharing those with you. And but what I'm really enjoying is I love being able to go deep with you in little mini sort of teaching classes like I'm going to be doing here. With my weekly videos that I do that are quite short, and I've done those for years, they're great for you to get little motivation snippets, to have something that you can think about and go and do. But through these classes, I actually get to really give you very actionable steps. And what's working now, I get to share with you and share a little bit behind the scenes. Sometimes a little bit vulnerable, but my commitment is to be transparent with you. So I love doing that. Now, here is my challenge to you, because every single one of these mini classes that I do, I'm going to give you action steps. I'm going to give you action steps that you can implement that week. Okay, just something to do in that 1 week. And if you take action on those, I know that you're going to make a huge difference in your business. Now, how do I know? Well, I've done it, because when I first started Wonderful Web Women, which was my third business online, my business model was interviewing the most successful women in the world who'd created their businesses online. And every single week, I interviewed one of them live. And I made a commitment to myself that I would implement one thing that I had learnt from them. I would implement it that week. And I actually reported back to my mailing list every single week, whatever it was that I had done. Now, that one action per week and being held accountable on it, that adds up to at least 50 actions per year. I'll let you have a couple of weeks off okay, over the holiday periods. But yeah, that's 50 action steps, implementing tactics into your business that are going to grow it. I did that, and honestly, I do believe that that is the thing that in that first year, especially, that first year, I earned far more in just in a month than I had the previous year. Really, really quickly. It's huge things happened because I did that for that year. Okay. So that's my challenge to you. I know it works. So there you go. Every single week, I'm going to give you action steps. If you take action, baby, you will create success. Right. Now, let's get into the topic for today. Now, I'm going to share with you what changes I've seen over the years. So that how do I know when there are changes coming? Okay, I'm going to share that with you. Just a few of those changes and how do I know? Like, how do I know that things are changing? I'll show you how. The next thing I'm going to go over is what are the main changes that are happening now that you probably are aware of, but you may not realize the significance of. So I'm going to go over those. And then the last one, I'm going to go over what you need to buckle down. 3 core things. If you focus on these 3 things, you will survive this. And in fact, you are going to thrive through this. There are going to be a lot of people who do not. Okay? And that's not going to be you, baby. So that's what I'm going to walk through in today's mini class here on the podcast. Now, I go into even more depth for you, and I have a training that you can do in your own time. Okay? So, and it goes into a lot more depth on how to implement these steps that I'm going to give you to do. Now, you can go over to romanceyourtribe.com/AYT webinar. AYT stands for Attract Your Tribe. So romanceyourtribe.com/AYT webinar. You can watch it now, okay? So as soon as you finish, you can go and watch it now, or you can get the recording and you can go through at your own pace, okay? So it's there for you. So just know I've got that extra resource to help you to actually implement. Okay, let's get stuck into it. So first steps. How do I know that there is change happening? Well, it really helps that I've been doing this online gig close to about 20 years. Like, I started my first online business when my daughter was 4. And she's 24 now. There you go. So it's very easy for me to forget that I've been around that long. And the thing is, there are people who were my mentors back when I started there. They're not in business anymore, not online anyway. They did not survive. There's a lot of people who did not make it. And I've been one of those people who has been willing to see that things are changing and be proactive and implement the changes before I'm sort of washed down by them, before I'm kind of like get ignored. So I've been able to make those changes and adapt and be willing to bring my clients along on that journey. I've been willing to work out what's changed, what do I need to change as a business owner so I survive, and then I teach my clients how to do it. So I've been doing that for 20 years now. So that's one of the reasons why I can actually see what's happening. Now, let me just give you a bit of an overview of some of the big changes that I've seen in that time and how I've had to adapt and how my clients adapted. I'll try to do it quickly. Number 1, my very first one, my internet art gallery, was my very first business. WordPress websites did not exist then. There were 2 main sorts of software to help you to do it. They all costed quite a bit of money up front, and they were Dreamweaver and FrontPage, I think it was. But you had to make every single thing by hand. And then there was no broadband or streaming. Everything had to be uploaded one by one through a dial-up. I sound so old when I say that. But that was significant. That meant that there weren't as many people online. That was a huge barrier to entry. So it was easier to get found, hard to get online, easier to get found. We're going to fast forward quite a few years now. WordPress really changed how easy it was for you to be able to get online and start an online business. Really changed the landscape. Thank heavens. But comes with that is you had to work harder to get found. okay, because there's a lot more people out there doing it. So that there became more easier, but more competitive. Now, let's now look at things that have got to do with when it comes to actually creating content and the ways that you can make money online. When I started Wonderful Web Women, which I think was my third business online, and that was the one that, man, it just took off. Finally, I just got it right then. So I was interviewing the most successful women in the world who'd built their businesses online. I was interviewing them every single week. It was all audio. It had to be done live because there was no way of recording and then timing it to go live at a certain time. There was no video. And so what I did is people would come along live and people paid me $47 a month just so they could get the recordings and the podcasts, get the recordings and the transcripts. Great business model. That worked exceptionally well for me. I then had my first high price program where I trained people to be able to do the same in their businesses. Honestly, I helped, would be close to 1,000 people to be able to get those businesses up and running. And that was really successful. Podcasts came. There goes that whole business model. Disappeared. What do you do? Okay, you look at what comes next. Right. The next thing that was coming was video. Okay, so if you could use video and you could work out where people could actually watch it, you could really stand out online. So that's when I started using video, and especially video podcasting, because people were using podcasts, but not many people were using video podcasts. So you could actually get to attention quite quickly. That's how I was able to really stand out in the marketplace. And I had a program where I taught my clients how to do it. They got results really, really fast. So that was a big change, wasn't it? But then it became so much easier to create video. If you're not using video now, like you're not going to get seen. You've got to be using video, and it's so much easier now. So that made it so if you were using video, well, everybody was using video now. You had to know how to use it strategically. Now, the other things that happened that I've seen these big changes that you need to adapt to is paid advertising. When I first started, you could use, well, actually there wasn't any paid advertising when I first started, but then quite quickly there became Google advertising. I got really, really good at it. It was actually, even though I'm not a geek, I actually had a program teaching clients how to, you do Google advertising. I used to burn it all to DVD and pack it all up and post it to them. Yeah, back then. So that became quite cheap. It got expensive. Then Facebook was really cheap. Now I'm going to share with you some big changes that have happened in that space. That means that paid advertising through different platforms is really, really difficult now. And so that's what we're going to cover next, is the changes that I can see that are happening now, and how you need to be prepared for them. So let's have a look at that. As you can see, there have been changes, and the reality is there's going to continue to be changes. It was so much easier each time going backwards to be able to stand out, because it was more difficult to actually get seen. It was easier to get seen to start with. Now it's getting harder and harder and harder. So now let's have a look at what are the changes right now that you really need to know about, because they're going to make a huge difference. Okay, let's do that one. Okay, so let's have a look at 3 main things that you need to be aware of that are really going to change the landscape online. Okay, now the first one is, at the time of me recording this, it's the end of 2021, and we're coming on close to 2 years now of a pandemic. We're only about 4 months off since it started in Australia, so less for other people. So that's nearly 2 years where there have been some core changes. Now, one of those is a lot of people have been suffering. Okay, so there will be a hesitancy to spending money. So you just need to be aware of that and know that that's for everybody. Okay, that hopefully will be changing, but it's just a reality. But the main thing that you need to know as a person who is online is because businesses needed to adapt. Businesses that were only running offline, may have only been working in their local area before, needed to adapt. The word pivot probably became the most used word in business during 2020 and 21. Now, the offshot from that is the number of competitors online now is really increased markedly. It really, really has. If you look even just in the coaching industry, there was like more than a doubling, perhaps tripling, of people who were working as coaches who then had to go online and start delivering virtually. The thing is, once lockdown started, the majority of those businesses have still remained offering virtual. In fact, it is so much easier for them to do that now because their clients, who perhaps may have really resisted the idea of, well, no, why would I see you on Zoom or wherever you're using it? I want to come into your business. I want to come into your rooms. I want to meet in person. Now, they're so used to it that they just go, oh yeah, that's fine. In fact, I know with different service providers I use, I actually ask if I can do it virtually because I don't have to travel. It's more time efficient. So that is now becoming the norm. So if you were really standing out in your marketplace because you weren't limiting yourself to local and because you weren't limiting yourself to only working in person, you were already ahead of the curve and were offering an online business, you've got a lot more competition now, okay? So just that's a reality. So with competition means you really need to be able to stand out. You can not appear to be the same as everybody else. And in the third part of this podcast, I'll tell you what to do. Okay? So that is number one. This is the reality and it's going to continue. So you need to adapt to that, to a much more competitive space. When I was giving you examples of the changes that I have seen over these 20 years online, is I was saying at each change point, it became easier and easier and easier for you to get more competitors because the barriers to entry were being removed. We've had some big barriers to entry and also people being forced to actually take action. So this is one of those, okay? Now, the next thing that you need to be aware of is when it comes to marketing online, because we have a lot more people not just delivering online, they are also now marketing online. Because through the pandemic, because we were all glued to our phones, wanting to know the latest updates of what was happening in my country, other people's countries, my local area, keeping track on making decisions on what's the right thing for me and my family. And we all became so much more intensive users of social media. Now, a lot of you might be going, I always was, but there are a lot of people out there, the same people who may not have been using social media. Their businesses were only being run offline, email lists, they had no idea what that was, to now they're online and they're using the different social media platforms. And they're not just using it to consume, they're also using it to communicate and to market. So that means when it comes to social media, it is a far more competitive space. It really is a far more competitive space. So you need to stand out. You need to be able to make it that you are the one that people are noticing. So how do you do that? I'll share with you in a moment. Okay. Now, the third thing, I talked about paid advertising and how it was Google, then it was becoming Facebook. We've also had, other paid advertising that you can do online, but these are the big ones that people in business will quite often either train or they will outsource or they'll get consultants. in. The big change that we have seen this year has been the iOS. So iPhone, the operating system, when it came to number 14, and now it's even getting doubled down with version 15, which is now already available, is they have inbuilt privacy, that the default settings mean that Facebook, Google, all of these platforms where you can do advertising, they no longer can collect information on your browsing habits, on what it is that you do, unless you say that you want to. Now, you as a consumer, you might go, oh, that's good, that's privacy, that's great to be protected. As a person who may pay for advertising, you're paying to be able to go, all right, well, I want people who are interested in this topic, or people who have recently been to my website. I want to show them some ads. I want to show ads to people who like to buy these sorts of things. They've actually gone to these sorts of sites and purchased. You don't know anything on them individually, but you want to know what their actions, what their interests are. There is a huge chunk now where you can't get that information. So it becomes very difficult for you to be able to compete using advertising. And sure, this is, not everybody has these changes to privacy, but it does mean that also the reporting that you're getting, say, through Facebook and through Google, through every platform, is not as accurate as it used to be. So, and when it comes to paying for advertising, you want to be able to measure everything to know, are you spending less than you're making? Otherwise, you're just supporting these, the companies. So the reality is that if you may have been doing Facebook advertising, I'll just stick with Facebook at the moment because it's the most popular. If you've been doing Facebook advertising, but not necessarily really clever at it, if you've perhaps done a course or worked out yourself how to set them up, and you might be running them, but when it comes to the hard part, which is every single day looking at them and tweaking and seeing what's working and changing, that you're not necessarily really skilled at doing that, it's going to be really, really difficult for you. You will very likely start losing money if you're doing paid advertising. Now, what does that mean for you? Now, if you've already been doing Facebook advertising, but not necessarily, really skilled in what to do now, then you're going to have to look for some different marketing, or you're going to have to invest in either a consultant or in some kind of support that's going to help you to be able to do it profitably. What if you've never done it, but you've always thought, well, that's the way that I'm going to start getting new leads, that's the way I'm going to get eyeballs? Well, it's going to be a difficult thing for you to enter into. You might be able to set them up, but to make them profitable is going to be harder for you. It's more skilled, okay? So I've because of that, I've actually now in a program where I actually am paying them to help me to monitor any Facebook ads that I set up, so that I know that I'm going to be doing them profitably. So I know that I don't have the skills to be able to do that myself, and my team are not Facebook experts, so I'm outsourcing for that. I'm not going to try and do it myself. I know I'll lose money. So that's the reality. So if you're using paid advertising, you need to be prepared that you're either going to have to bring in somebody else to do it for you, or you're going to have some sort of coaching, mentoring program that they are actually going to be helping you, but they're actually not just teaching you. They're doing a lot of done with you. Okay, so a big shout out to Emily Hirsch from Hirsch Marketing. They've been really, really helping me to be able to set up some new advertising. Okay, so that's number one. So you've got here that you very likely have lost what has been for a lot of businesses, the big businesses that have grown really fast. It's because they've invested in Facebook advertising. Now it's going to be harder. Okay, so what do you do instead? Now, In order to be able to advertise, to get new clients, you need to be able to get your message in front of people. So these are the 3 things that I really want you to focus on. If you focus on these, and this is what I'm doing myself, then you're going to survive this baby. If you don't do it, you're just going to kind of get swamped by everybody else out there. So these are what I want you to do. The very first one you need to do, and this is Business 101, you really, really need to get super duper duper clear on your marketing message. You need to get clear on exactly who you help. You're going to have to really get very specific, okay? On exactly who you help, at what stage of their problem solving are you going to be helping them? You need to get super duper clear on what is it that you do, like what is so unique about you that you are the person that they are going to want to help solve. Now, I know this is Marketing 101, but you can no longer afford to just do it in a kind of mediocre way, okay? You've got to really do a great job. You've got to get super clear. That's one of the reasons why when I shared in my recent episode, for me to get super duper clear on that, I interviewed all different people who were clients, who were people who had hovered around potentially for clients but had never bought for years. For people who've just discovered me, I interviewed them and asked them, like, why? What? Who? Take that time. So you can I go into detail in that. You can go over and listen to that other episode. But you cannot be too vanilla here, okay? You've got to be even more specific, clearer. Okay. I run through this in the webinar that I've got for you, the training. I go into a lot more detail about what you need to look at for that and some resources to help you. Okay, so got you covered, baby. And in the Attract Your Tribe Academy, we really go deep into this in the Profit in You module and the Profitable Avatar module. We totally nail that. So that's number 1. You need to get clear on that. The next one that you really need to have in place in order for you to stand out as different to everybody else, you really need to have created a framework that is unique to your business, trademarkable to your business. The way that you get results with your clients, whether you're working with them one-on-one, whether you have a course, whether you run retreats, whatever it is, you need to really get super duper clear on the exact steps that you use to create transformation for your clients. And you need to know what that big promise is, that transformational promise. Not only do you need to get clear on those steps, you need to be very clear on the outcomes that they will get at every single step, what the milestones are, and you need to give it a unique name. That framework needs to be yours, because that framework is one of the easiest ways for you to be able to stand out as different to all of your competitors. Now, that again, I go into detail in that in the training that I've got for you, and we totally nail that through the academy. And in fact, this is one of my favorite things to do. I love it doing with this. And it's one of the things that I do with my accelerator clients. We totally nail this bit, and the difference that it makes to your business is phenomenal, especially when it comes to step 3, because it is far more competitive online now, because you cannot rely on profitably using paid advertising unless you're willing to invest to really educate yourself or outsource. You need to have a new way of being able to be seen, to be introduced to potential clients. And the best way to do that is strategically using relationships so that other people will promote you to their tribe. Now, the beauty of this is it's free. And it's actually not rocket science. It's not complicated. This is exactly the process that I use, that I'm going to run you through that whole thing in the Attract Your Tribe webinar. Okay, I'll walk you through what do you need to do, and I'll show you some examples of what it means. Now, the reason why I said getting your framework is really important with this is that's actually one of the steps that makes it really quite irresistible for people who are quite influential in your industry to promote you. If you've got that framework in place and a definite transformational promise, it's a really powerful communication tool to bring on strategic partners, just people who will promote you in your industry. So if you focus on those three things, really super duper clearly nailing your message and continue to do that every single week. If you really create a framework that sets you apart with a very clear transformational promise, then you can use strategic relationships that will give you so much more power in your business than even using paid advertising will do. And it will give you the cash that you can also then reinvest that in paid advertising to scale to the next level if you want to. So focus on those three things. So just now to wind up, what we've looked at is, reality is when it comes to doing business online, it evolves, and it tends to happen in sort of big evolution steps, and that each of those steps, and I ran through quite a few of those that I've witnessed myself and survived through. Each of those usually result in it being easier for people to be able to get online and market, which means that you have greater competition, which means you've then got to look for what's happening next and make the most of that. So you've got to be proactive. So it's just the reality. It will keep on happening. Now we've got the next one. This next one it's a crowded space. It's a crowded space simply because the world has gone online big time. So it's a crowded space. And paid advertising is so much harder, not just because of the competition, but because of these privacy issues that are affecting its effectability. So these are the big changes. So we've looked at what changes you need to do. And if you focus on those three things of super duper nailing down your message, of really creating a signature framework that makes you stand out with a transformational promise, it will enable you to really use strategic relationships. And that is where the power is in being able to grow your business. All right. Now, again, I've got free training for you, okay? I'm going to a lot more depth, run you through some case studies, give you action steps that you can be doing this week through my more intensive training that goes for longer. It's on demand, which means you can go and watch it now if you like, or you can get the recording and go through at your own pace. And that's at romanceyourtribe.com/AYT webinar. And if you just know that you want to work with me, okay, if you either want to be working with me in the academy or you want to work closely with me at the accelerator level, just contact me, okay? And I'll show you what we can do together. And let's just make this happen, baby. Now, your action step this week, okay? This is what I want you to do, this one action step. I want you to really have a look at your marketing messages, and I want you to be able to answer these questions. Not just who your target market is. No. I want to know, who, at what point in solving a problem are the people who you help with? What is it that's making them go, oh, I cannot cope with this anymore. I've just got to get a solution now, okay? Who are they? Who do you help? And then I want you to also look at what you do, and I want you to go, what is the promise? What can you actually confidently promise will be an outcome for those people? If they come to you and say, look, I really need help now, you can say, yep, this is an outcome I can promise you and I can guarantee it. Can you do that? I want you to be super clear. If you're finding it a little bit difficult, well then that's a sign that this is the number one area you need to focus on first. Okay, now I would love to hear from you. I love hearing about people who take action, so please let me know. So the way to do that is just wherever you're watching this, is just come and leave me a comment. What I would really love to hear from you is your ahas. I'd love to know your ahas, and more importantly, what action have you taken, baby? And if you do that, come over to Instagram because I'm kind of wanting to hang out there a little bit more at the moment. So you can find me on any social media at Janet Beckers. But if you go over there, share, take a screen grab if you're watching this on video. Just take a screen grab of what you can see and share your ahas, share it in your stories or share it through your posts. Any lessons that you've taken from this, share them with people. What's an aha that you can then share with other people? Do that, tag me in it, and I will share you in my stories. I'll shine the light on you, and I would just love to hear what really works for you. So thank you. And if you've got a friend that you know that really needs to hear this, and they do, please pass it on. Please pass it on and help as many people who you care about to really thrive through this latest big change that is coming. Okay, bye.
I hope you enjoyed today's episode. I loved hanging out with you, so let's do this again. The best way to do that is to subscribe right now to Romance Your Tribe podcast so you never miss an episode. And if you'd like to dive in deeper to more episodes, great resources, and really in-depth free training, come over and join me at romanceyourtribe.com. Bye.